Welcome to the Haven Collective. I'm J.R. Foresteros, and this is the Beacon Bit. Today we are exploring the parable of the laborers in the vineyard that's in Matthew chapter 20. And so if you have not read this parable, I would encourage you, before we dive into this conversation, to read it. You can find a link to the passage in the description below this video. What does fairness look like to you? I think about this a lot because I love board games, and my wife is actually kind of low-key obsessed with fairness and just in life in general, right? But I think fairness is actually a tricky concept when you get into it. There are a few definitions about it, and this particular parable really presses on how we understand the concept of fairness. And so today we're going to look at an interpretation of this parable from Dr. Robert Farrar Capon again. And we're going to start by asking this question. If you were in that first group of workers, how do you feel at the end of the story, right? Because you met the homeowner in the town square. He hired you for the day and promised to pay you a fair day's wage, right? Whatever that was. It was a denarii back then. We might say today it was, a few $100, right? Whatever the going rate is for a fair day's wage. That's it, right? A fair day's wage. You agreed to that, and he pays you that. But he also gave the same exact amount of money to all of these other people who worked less or a lot less or significantly less than you did. And I know for myself, I'd feel like I got a raw deal. I'd kind of be wishing in my secret heart, or maybe in my not so secret heart, I'd probably say it out loud, I wish that I would have been able to slack off all day and just show up for an hour at the end of the day and get a full day's wage. Like, how great would that have been, right? So I think the landowner's response, which Capon interprets as sort of God's response to us, is really provocative, right? The landowner says, "Why are you angry?" Because I paid you what we agreed on, right? I honored the terms of our contract. And he's right. I wouldn't actually have anything to be upset about. What I'm upset about is that other people got a better deal than I did. They got the same amount of money for significantly less work. And I'm mad, I think, just because I would sure like to work less and get more. But that's the grace part of the story. And the landowner's response to that is, if it's my money, don't I get to do with it whatever I want, right? Like, if I want to pay everyone who works the same amount, regardless of how much they work, what's that to you? You got a fair wage. The reality is, a lot of us don't mind things to be unfair if they're unfair in our direction, right? What we really don't want at the end of the day is to be on the receiving end of the unfairness, right? The side where it feels like we got a raw deal. And so I want to read a quote. Again, this is from Capon. He calls this bookkeeping, right? Literally, it comes from the story where we're tallying and we're keeping track of wages and hours and all of that kind of stuff. But you can imagine how else bookkeeping looks in our spiritual lives, right? And when we look around the world around us and we see, hey, I'm doing all of this good, they're not, or they are, or whatever, right? But he says, bookkeeping is the only punishable offense in the kingdom of heaven. I love that. It's the only punishable offense in the kingdom of heaven because it's the only thing that will keep us out of heaven when we insist that we deserve something. Because the truth is, none of us deserves any of the rewards of God's kingdom. We are all there by grace. And so the only way we can truly receive God's grace is if we admit that in God's kingdom, only winners lose because only losers win. Now, I'm going to let us sit on that statement. We're going to come back and discuss it in our Beacon gatherings this Sunday. And I can't wait for that. But I want to say it again one more time. Dr. Capon says, only winners lose in the kingdom of God because only losers win. I'll see you Sunday. And until then, grace and peace be with you.